times it never did come up, but now it does. We can argue forever why it does. What is it you've heard so far today that you think is worth adding a true trans voice into this debate?
Yeah, hi Ian. I'm just really disappointed in the amount of ignorance that's existing around this, and I understand why it is. It's because the public are swamped with negativity. You never actually hear from trans people. There are no trans presenters, columnists, whatever in public life. It's just non-stop bad news and demonization of trans people. And I'm listening to your talkers today, and it just breaks my heart. It really does. Anyone out there who thinks that somebody's born trans, and that's what it is. We're biological. We're like everybody else. You're born trans. It's not a choice. It is like being gay in that sense. You have no say over the matter. And we're not looking for a pat on the head or to be indulged and, oh, we'll play along and, call you a name. This is who we are. We are women and we are men. And as the law stands currently in the UK, though you'd never believe it from the right-wing press that pumps out this rubbish non-stop, 1,000 articles a month, the law recognises that fact. And we are men and women recognised in law, and we are legally allowed currently, and we have been allowed since the 1960s to use our preferred facilities. I heard the guy earlier on talk about anorexia, and I heard you pull him up, but I was a little bit disappointed for the reason that you pulled him up, Ian. You pulled him up because you said it's not the same. Anorexia is really serious and life-threatening. Well, let me tell you, being trans is life-threatening. Gender dysphoria is a life-threatening condition.
But being a kid in a classroom, India, deciding you're going to call yourself non-binary, and there's thousands of those examples, and I think your words when we spoke once on the programme was what a load of old rubbish that is. You might have changed your view on that, I don't know, but I think that was the comparison that he was making. Kids who, they used to be a goth, now they're non-binary, 2 years later they're not non-binary. No, that's a whole different journey to the one you've been on.
Yeah, I think you're putting words in his mouth. He wasn't meaning that at all. And I'm talking about the overall ignorance and some of I'll just be honest with you, Ian, it's horrendous listening to talk. I like little bits of talk, but some of this, the way it's presented here is just disgusting.
Well, I've always tried to put a measured slant on this, and just before you came on, you heard what I was saying about people like yourself, and I've said that consistently.
Let me just explain the non-binary thing then, okay? Honestly, it was new to me. I'm trans. I didn't even know about non-binary. I didn't even know about LGBT, really, because I wasn't like a gay man before I transitioned or anything like that. So this whole thing was new to me. And early on in this conversation, and this is what I would hope that everybody in the country would be like, early on, I had a view. And the view was that non-binary and being gender fluid and all that is just something that somebody chooses. But over the course of the last year, 2 years, I've actually gone out and I've met these people. And it is real. It's essentially this. I think that some people think, and you were talking about that, this mythical idea that some bearded bloke is just going to click his fingers and identify and walk into a changing room. Honestly, that's newspaper talk.
I mean, to be honest, I didn't mention about him walking into a changing room. I was actually I was kind of quoting you from a couple of years ago when you talked about going to speak, I think in Trafalgar Square, and a guy walked on stage and said, "My name is
correct.
I'm a woman. I have a penis," and you thought, "I'm not having any of this," and you legged it home because that wasn't.
And that's a true story. That is absolutely what happened. I was booked as one of the keynote speakers that day, and I thought, I'm not having any of it. But then you come to realise, and this is the point that I was going to make, okay, it's called transition for a reason. There is a period where you go from one to the other.
I get that, but you must recognise, India, you're bright, you're a journalist, you're switched on. You must know that in addition to people like yourself, and again, I'm repeating stuff here, for 20 years, we never spoke about this on the radio. It was never controversial. Even when Nadia won Big Brother, nobody even really referenced that side of things. If ever there was going to be a point of debate, it would have been that. That show was massive, but it wasn't. It didn't go into that territory. Suddenly, something happened. And I don't believe it happened because more people were suddenly comfortable transitioning. I believe it happened because many more people decided to declare an identity in this kind of identity war.
It's not true.
Why does my friend say they've got 15 kids in their class, 15 girls in their year group who identify as non-binary? When I take a call from a guy who was a student at university and a third of his year were calling themselves non-binary? This is not true, is it? It isn't true. There is such a thing as some people jumping on this as a politics thing. Do you really think 50% of a class are non-binary? It's cobblers, India, you know that.
But this is rubbish. Show me a classroom where 50% of pupils are non-binary. It's just newspaper talk. It's absolute slam. It's rubbish.
No, I'm talking about people who've called into the show. I'm talking about people I know in teaching who said that the proportion of young girls, doesn't seem to happen in boys' schools, but in young girls who adopt the non-binary and their preferred pronouns is absolutely massive.
Well, but there's not 50% though, and I would say that the non-binary thing is purely because people are becoming more aware, and hopefully that's what we're all.
Yeah, but none of us feel. If you said to me,
all aware?
If you said, do I feel like 100% male? I could go.
No, but that's not the same thing.
Well, I don't know if I do or not.
Well, honestly, Ian, we can't. I can't explain it all to you here, but that's not what it is. You're basically going down the route of which would eventually be that. Like a tomboy is the same as being trans. It's completely different from saying that, you might feel a particular way at a particular time. That is not what non-binary is. You're kind of in between the two. But I want to get back to just the general discourse here. I'm currently living under a death threat. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah, I did.
From a far-right organisation. I've had to change the way I live. I've had to change the way I use social media. It's actually impacting on my life. And this is a direct result of the rhetoric that is pumped out by right-wing media and endorsed by the likes of Suella Braverman and
people cancelling people like Joanna Cherry, surely. I mean, that's where it's come from. I'm afraid you've got the telescope round the wrong way on this one.
No, I think you have. I think you'll find that Joanna Cherry has been on the BBC 3 times in the last 24 hours. She's been on Sky. She's been in the Daily Express. She's been in the Daily Mail. In no way is Joanna Cherry, a very prominent politician, cancelled.
Her show at Edinburgh's been cancelled because some of the staff didn't feel safe. What's that about? Come on, you're a free speech advocate.
Yeah. Well, I'm not not in the term that you use, free speech, because free speech has become a euphemism for I'm allowed to insult people and get away with it. And I'm not saying that about you. I'm talking about the general conversation from.
All right.
I'm sorry, the right wing. But let me just say, as a closing point, the reason that the staff at the stand have said we don't want anything to do with it is because they're from the generation that recognises that this is bigotry. You wouldn't turn up at a Ku Klux Klan meeting. I wouldn't want to work behind the bar at a Ku Klux Klan.
And I hope honestly, I genuinely, sincerely, I think you know this and nobody should be trying to advance hatred or be unkind, but that's not the right way for anybody to deal with this. But I do think this is a multifaceted discussion. It's not no pun here. It's not a binary discussion in that sense. We will speak to India again, I'm sure. That's India Willoughby.